Alrighty guys, welcome back to another American Reacts. We are in New Zealand again. We are looking at Geography Now is the channel. And we are going to get the lay of the land, so to say. These are great videos to just kind of get a basic knowledge and some facts about each country. So dive into New Zealand then with a Geo Now. Let's get right into it. Much more to come from New Zealand. I'm anxious to learn about it because, again, a lot of my viewers are from Australia and New Zealand, according to my analytics. And New Zealand usually ranks pretty high on random lists I've seen on like Way of Life and stuff. It's a really beautiful country from what I know. I heard it can be pretty expensive too. So, but yeah, let's see what we learn here. Here we go.
Now, when I think of New Zealand, really only one word seems to come to mind. Tau matawhakatangi hanga ko au au o tamatea tsuri pu ka ka piki maunga horo nuku pokai whenua kita na tahu.
Wow, that was a mouthful.
Hey everyone, I'm your host Barbs. New Zealand is one of those places where a few people have made a powerful image for themselves. It's one of the last places on Earth to be discovered and inhabited by humans. And when they arrived, it was unlike anything anyone had ever seen. Mostly because there were these massive 12 feet tall bird monsters.
Geez.
We'll get into that in a bit. But first, New Zealand is not only a key player in the ocean nations, but a geographic anomaly. As in, half the time when you look at artwork or decorations or newscasts or even educational books, New Zealand is forgotten from the map.
Oh,
Kiwis even joke about it. Even their government website 404 page not found website pokes fun at it. Anyway,
oh, that's
New Zealand,
funny.
or Aotearoa,
at least they embrace
the
joke, right?
Pacific Ocean, about 1,200 miles or 2,000 kilometers off the coast of Australia, and about 600 miles or 1,000 kilometers from the nearest major islands of Fiji, Tonga, and New Caledonia.
Wow,
meaning
interesting.
Technically, France is their closest neighbor. The country is made up of two main large islands, aptly named the North Island, or Te Ika a Maui, which makes up about 42% of the landmass, yet holds about 3/4 of the population,
okay.
and the larger, yet less populated South Island, or Te Waiponamu, at about 56% of the landmass. The remaining 2-ish% of the landmass is made up of hundreds of interior and outlying islands,
That's
33
cool.
main ones that are either around the main two islands, like the largest one, Stewart Island, just south of South Island. Then you have the outlying island chains, like the northernmost Kermadec Islands, the easternmost Chatham Islands, and the sub-Antarctic southernmost point, the Campbell Islands. The country is a unitary state divided into 16 councils, 11 regional councils, and 5 unitary regional councils. The Chatham Islands act as their own special territorial authority. The second largest city, Wellington, is the capital, the southernmost capital in the world. However, Auckland up north is the largest city, which holds about 1/3 of the entire population of the country, with the largest and busiest airport, Auckland International. Otherwise, Christchurch on South Island is the 3rd largest city and holds the 2nd busiest airport.
So, just off the top of my head, Auckland and Christchurch are the only cities I've heard of from there.
But wait, that's not all. The sovereignty claim extends even further, and then you get the 3 New Zealand realm territories and free association island nations. These are Tokelau, the Cook Islands, and Niue. Tokelau is considered a non-self-governing dependent territory. It also has a territorial dispute with American Samoa over Swains Island, whereas the Cook Islands and Niue are labeled as self-governing states in free association with New Zealand.
That's interesting.
Finally, you have the Ross Dependency, which is New Zealand's claim to Antarctica, which of course under the Antarctic Treaty does not actually fall under their sovereignty, but you know, a lot of people like to say they have something they can't. Whew, for a nation that doesn't even show up half the time on maps, there's a lot going on here.
But wait, if New Zealand is just an island in the middle of the Pacific, which continent is New Zealand a part of?
Ah, good question. That is a question that has kind of stumped
that's kind of
cartographers for
interesting,
centuries. In the simplest sense, categorically, New Zealand is part of the broader region known as Oceania, which is basically just Australia plus everything else in Melanesia, Micronesia, and Polynesia. Technically, Australia and New Zealand together are called Australasia. However, it's weird because New Zealand doesn't lie on the same continental shelf as Australia. This has led to the consideration of New Zealand belonging to a newer subregion known as Zealandia, classified by some dude in the 90s as either a continental fragment or a microcontinent made up of a submerged continental crust shelf that expands all the way from New Caledonia to an empty spot in the ocean just south of the Campbell Islands. 93% of Zealandia is submerged, with New Zealand being the largest protruding segment.
Wow, that's pretty
interesting. You want to categorize
actually.
it, New Zealand is kind of strange.
Wait, go back to the self-governing island thing. Do they belong to New Zealand, or are they full countries?
Good question. It's kind of like this. Okay, guys, look, the British just kind of put you under my jurisdiction, so I guess that means you're all New Zealand citizens, okay?
Yeah, but we all have our own languages and customs and want to write a constitution for ourselves with free association status. We're basically countries in our own right, but under your overarching sovereignty, I guess.
Like, your military can come in for defense, but otherwise we got everything else covered.
I mean, guys, I have less than 2,000 people on less than 5 square miles of land on 3 islands.
Whoa.
I think I'll just become a dependent territory state.
All right, fair enough. 2 kind of countries with loose ties and 1 dependent territory country with stronger ties. Got it.
Plus, hey,
Oh,
I became the
jeez.
first completely solar-powered nation in the world.
Not exactly
Okay,
fully functional
that's
sovereign
cool.
nation state by definition, but yeah, good for you. Some places of interest
That's
in
pretty
New Zealand might
interesting, wow.
include the world's steepest street at a gradient of 38 degrees,
Whoa.
the National Museum, Auckland's Sky Tower, you can actually jump off of it, the Rotorua Geysers in traditional Maori village, Rainbow's End and Splash Planet,
Wow.
the International Antarctic Center, Hobbiton, so many wine fields like the ones in Marlborough,
Oh, that's
90 Mile
beautiful.
Beach, which is actually only 56 miles, Waitomo Caves with glowworms,
Oh,
Frying Pan
dude,
Lake,
that
and
was
the Meraki
sick.
spherical boulders. And honestly, I could go on
Okay,
and on
hold
with all the
on.
natural wonders of this country, but that's 6 miles. Waitomo Caves with
Okay, that is insane. Get a look at that. Wow.
glowworms, Frying Pan
That's really cool. It's a boiling lake. Wow, largest one on Earth.
Lake, and the Meraki spherical
Those are interesting too. What in the world? Wow, that's just scratches the surface. That's a lot of cool stuff already.
boulders. And honestly, I could go on and on with all the natural wonders of this country, but that would take like 50 videos, and we gotta cram as much as we can in this one. So let's just talk about all the natural stuff of New Zealand, shall we? Now, New Zealand is
Yeah.
an outdoors country, world-renowned for its
Oh, look at
mind-blowingly
that.
wonderful landscape displayed in a number of films and movies.
Oh,
Fun
wow.
fact, The Lord of the Rings gave them so much publicity and tourism money that they even have a Minister of the Rings in their parliament.
Oh, do they
No
now?
way.
You wrote the script for the episode, and I'm just reading off the teleprompter, so I figured you would know that.
I did. First of all, the country is located in the Ring of Fire on the convergence of the Pacific and Australian plates that
that's
creates
cool.
the mountainous southern Alps of the southern island. Here you can find the
Wow.
tallest peak, Mount Cook or Aoraki,
Oh,
at over
that's
12,000
beautiful,
feet
man.
or 3,700 meters, whereas across the Cook Strait, the smaller Kaweka Range can be found on the North Island. This, in return, makes the country subject to earthquakes and volcanic activity. There are about 83 known volcanoes
Ooh.
of all types, and the largest
a lot
active
for that
one
small of
being
an area.
Ruapehu on North Island. Otherwise, you can see other volcanic wonders like the dormant Banks Peninsula on South Island, and
Wow,
the
such
eerily
rugged
perfect
terrain. What a
circular
beautiful
Mount
place.
Taranaki on
Look
the
at
west
that.
side of North Island. Just a skip away, you find the largest lake, Lake Taupo in the Taupo caldera, one of the largest supervolcanoes on Earth.
Oh,
From there,
wow.
the lake is drained by the longest river of the country, the Waikato. Now, New Zealand is interesting because due to its shape, there is no part of the country that is more than about 80 miles or so from the ocean. The flatter valleys on the sides of the mountains are where most people live and produce crops and livestock. Skip a little further west and you get the least inhabited and difficult to access, but most breathtaking part of New Zealand, the Fjordland. Steep
Oh,
cliffs
wow.
plunging into the Tasman Sea, with Milford Sound being the most popular spot and the only one accessible by road. New Zealand ranks as one of the top most landform diverse countries on Earth, having everything from alpine forests, glaciers, geothermal geysers. They even have a small desert in the middle of North Island. And on some of the coasts, you
Wow.
have tropical beaches with magnetic black sand containing magnetite. Seriously, I still have some.
That's
Check it out. This is
insane.
from Piha Beach in North Island. Whoa,
What?
it sticks on. Now, the one thing
Okay,
about New
that's
Zealand that set
insane,
it apart
dude.
upon discovery is that other than 2 species of bat,
The only beach I've heard of was in Iceland. I've heard of that. I didn't know they had one too, and the fact that it's magnetic, that's really bizarre. That's freaking cool, dude.
the entire island had no mammals prior to human encounter. Now, this
Wow.
is usually the part where Noah comes in, but he had a scheduling conflict. They couldn't be here today, so therefore, I saw Min Random Hannah. Hannah, take it away.
The country is a bird haven with over 200 species, over half endemic to New Zealand. And the funny thing, many of which are flightless. It's like the
That's
flightless
weird.
bird capital of the world. Species such as the kakapo, the world's only flightless nocturnal parrot, and they have more species of penguin than anywhere else on the planet.
What?
At one point a long time ago, they used to have the moa, a 12-foot tall monster until it
Holy
was hunted by the native
smokes.
Maori to extinction. Then you have the national
12-foot
animal,
tall
the famous kiwi,
freak.
a flightless bird which comes in 5 forms on both islands. Known for their hair-like feathers, long beaks with nostrils, making them some of the only few bird species that can smell. Otherwise,
Wow.
with flying birds, you have the kia, the world's only alpine
cool.
parrot. And if you see one, they are curious creatures, unafraid of humans, that love to chew
Oh,
on
look at
shiny
that.
objects or rubber.
Seriously, those guys tried to steal my stuff one time.
Outside of the bird world, you can find reptiles like the turatara, which has a 3rd parietal eye on the top of its head, or
What?
the giant weta, the heaviest insect on Earth. Ugh. Resource-wise, the country is
Wow,
known
lots
for
of
its huge
interesting
dairy farming
stuff
and
there.
livestock industry. Jade or greenstone is a precious stone mined and sold here, as well often carved into
Very
jewelry
cool.
or traditional Maori tools and ornament. Besides all that, though, much of the country makes money through tourism, specifically
Oh, I
outdoor
bet.
tourism, specifically Queensland on South Island. This place offers everything
that
from
was scenic.
skydiving, paragliding, and zorbing, which, by the way,
Oh,
the
no
Kiwis
way.
invented. And speaking
They
of
invented
Kiwi
that?
inventions,
That's so
food.
cool.
Kiwis are
I've always
an
wanted to
out-and-out
do that.
Seafood folk. Native species like gurnard, hoki, hake, hapuku, pawa, and crayfish are made into numerous dishes. Cooked, raw, smoked, steamed, battered, and fried
Nice.
with chips. If that's not your thing, some non-fishy Kiwi dishes might include things like roast lamb, savory meat pies, hokey pokey ice cream, Kiwi-style burger, manuka honey, kumara,
Yummy.
LNP drink, pavlova cake, and one of the most traditional Maori dishes, hangi. And speaking of cultural
Wow.
tradition, we go to...
Thank you, Hannah. Feel free to follow her on Instagram.
No problem.
Yeah, that's a thing now. Now, this is going to be the best part of the episode because the people of New Zealand, known as Kiwis, are the biggest
Kiwis.
treasure you'll find. First of all, the country has about 5 million people and often ranks as one of the top 3 ease of business index countries in the world with the least corruption.
Wow,
At
that's
somewhere
neat.
around 74%, the country is made up primarily of peoples of European descent, mostly of English, Scottish, and Irish ancestry.
Cool.
About 15% of the country is native Maori, 7% Pacific Islander, and the rest are mostly Asian of
Wow.
various countries like China, Korea, and Japan. Yes, by the way, it's pronounced Maori, not Maori, Maori. They use the New Zealand dollar as their currency, they use the Type I plug outlet, and they drive on the left side of the road. Now, we all know that English is the most widely spoken language in the country with a distinct Kiwi dialect. To outsiders, it sounds just like the Australian one, but they swear it's different. They have some
Nice.
distinct Kiwi words. Here's my Kiwi buddy Jared explaining.
Bro, it's a beaut. I'm off to the dairy. Is that us? Yeah, nah, it's a cracker, but it's ages and we're in the wops. Egg, you're taking the piss.
What?
It's close as. Chuck on your jandals and it'll be a piece of piss. Whatever then, only if you stop rocking me out. Stoked. Sweet as.
Nonetheless, there are actually 2 other official languages of New Zealand, Maori and New Zealand Sign Language, making New Zealand the first country to adopt signing as an official language, even though only half of 1% knows it. Now let's talk about culture and the whole Maori thing. The Maori traditionally come from about 100 or so iwi, or tribes or peoples, spread throughout both islands. Most in the north part of the country, the largest being the Ngapuhi at over 100,000 people. Their culture is a
Wow.
huge integral factor that plays into what it means to be Kiwi. I mean, instead of hello, you'll often hear the Maori word kia ora as a greeting. Most schools teach the Maori language in elementary years, and
That's
there are
pretty
immersion
cool.
schools as well. In addition, they have a few television channels and radio stations that speak almost entirely in Maori. Today, the majority of
neat.
native speakers are found in the North Island, most heavily concentrated in the Northland and Gisborne and Bay of Plenty regions. And speaking of Maori, we cannot do this episode without talking about the haka. Almost everyone on the island knows one form of the traditional war dance performed by both men and women, known for its aggressive movements, loud chanting, and intimidating facial expressions. Very often it's performed at sporting events.
That's
the haka is
neat,
not
dude.
only used at games or as a means to intimidate, though. It can be used in a variety of situations, ranging from birthday parties, funerals, even weddings, where the people celebrate the union of 2 people
Dang.
happily, and everyone takes part in it,
You
whether
see that
you are
girl?
ethnically Maori or non-Maori. It's a tradition that really unites
She looked
everyone on the
mean,
island,
man.
regardless of race. Pretty cool,
That's
right?
pretty
And now
cool.
let's
It's like a definitely like a warrior style dance, right? Really neat.
talk about tattoos, and actually, let's have another co-host do this. Let's see, which options do I have? Who can I select? Let's see, Hannah already did one. Why not Ken? All right, Ken, take it away.
You might occasionally come across someone with kirituhi, or skin art, or tamoko, which are face
Neat.
tattoos. There's so much information that goes into this, but basically, Maori tradition did not have a specific written script. Instead, they use a documented information and history through a series of wood carvings and tattoos. No 2 are alike, as each person's tattoos
pretty
told
cool.
a specific story. of
Very
who they were.
intricate
Generally,
detail
the
on
left side
that.
is reserved for the father's lineage, and the right side the
Oh,
mother's.
okay.
The patterns can describe everything from tribe, rank, work, expertise, athletic accomplishments, and so on.
That's pretty
In
cool.
other
I like
news,
that.
Kiwis are pretty athletic. You cannot talk about New Zealand without mentioning rugby. They are 3-time World Cup championship
I still
winners,
gotta
and
react to
often when
rugby.
they
I
don't
would love
win,
to see
they
that.
place in the top 3.
Thank you, Ken. Feel free to follow him on Instagram. And now it's time to talk about history. In the quickest way I can summarize it, Bird Island, no humans. Maori come in from Polynesia, maybe sometime around the 1200s. Maori Pa settlements established. Moa bird is hunted to extinction. Tribal battles for land. Abel Tasman becomes the first European to come in contact. They kind of forget about it until the British come in by like 100 years later. For a while, they just kind of traded with the Maori. Intertribal wars with the new weapons that they acquired by the Europeans. Missionaries, British colony, New Zealand wars, Treaty of Waitangi, controversy with mistranslation. Self-government within the British Empire, women's suffrage, massive immigration wave. World War I, they play a role in Pacific.
Yes, wasn't a long time ago New Zealand actually part of Australia? Is that true? Let me know down below.
Warfare against German-occupied Samoa. World War II, they play a role again in the Pacific, but this time against the Japanese in Papua New Guinea. Statute of Westminster Adoption Act. Muldoon years. 1980 reforms. 1990s and early 2000s, business really starts to boom. Earthquake in Christchurch. Some notable people from New Zealand or of Kiwi descent might include people like Hongihika, Honeheke, Te Puea Herangi, Maui Pomare, Potatau Te Ferofero, Ernest Rutherford, Kate Shepard, Sir Apirana Ngata, Sir Edmund Hillary, Sir Peter Jackson, Jacinda Ardern, Russell Crowe, Jonah Lomu, Sir Colin Meads, Dame Fina Cooper, Flight of the Conchords, Bruce McLaren, Catherine Mansfield, Lord, oh, and the meme page Dolan Dark, I was told. Yeah, quite a few Kiwis out there, which brings us to our next segment, the Kiwi Crew. They're friends. The friend zone. Alright, diplomatically speaking, New Zealand, for lack of a better term, is basically like Australia's Canada. They get along with nearly everyone, and unless if it's a rugby match, it's hard to harbor any animosity towards them. And even if it is a rugby match, it's like, okay, you guys can win. Just do that hockey thing again. First of all, as part of numerous international organizations, New Zealand has harnessed an international network of alliances since its inception. For one, South Africa, Argentina, Uruguay, and Chile have had close links as members of the Convention for the Conservation of Antarctic Marine Living Resources. These 5 nations kind of act as like the southern gateways to Antarctica, and they hold a high level of responsibility when it comes to monitoring the South Seas. China has an interesting, kind of good, but kind of controversial relationship with New Zealand. Not only have Chinese immigrants been living in New Zealand since the 19th century, but in 2008, a bold move with a free trade agreement was established, and today they are the second largest import and export partner. The problem is the housing market. Many Chinese investors have bought out property in metropolitan areas that remain unused and empty for the purpose of real estate appreciation. This has left many Kiwis unable to live in the houses in their own country.
That's
this
what
has
I've heard.
Frustrated many of them for a long time, leaving them to ask the government for reforms in foreign investment policy. As a former British colony, they've always been closely linked to the UK, and UK citizens...
Yeah, I've heard that New Zealand has gotten really expensive to live in, which is unfortunate. I feel like that's going on in a lot of countries. I know it is in America. The cost of living, inflation, and housing prices have gone crazy. Since literally 2019, the housing market is so outrageous. And so, you know, if you bought a house a few years ago, you're doing good because you probably tripled your money. But, you know, if you're a first-time home buyer or something like that, it's getting really hard to be able to afford a house and a lot of wages. I'm sure you know wages are abysmal in America. It's expensive to live, but you tend to not make a lot of money. It's pretty crazy. But, yeah, that's a shame that their housing... also is getting so expensive there. That sucks.
often Scottish, choose to migrate and live in New Zealand. Problem is distance. New Zealand is one of the furthest members in the Commonwealth from the UK, and over time the UK relations waned as the UK paid more attention to the EU. Nonetheless, they've grown up, don't need to hold mommy's hand anymore, and they can handle their own affairs. Then we get to the Quadfecta, the USA, Canada, and Australia. There is somewhat of an unspoken, unbreakable bond between these four. New Zealand has fought alongside the US in almost every major global event from the 20th century and on. There was a slight hiccup in the ANZUS Security Treaty in the 80s in which they decided to initiate a nuclear-free zone in their territorial waters. Nonetheless, relations are still strong and they are considered one of the closest allies. Canada and New Zealand are very close though. They both think very similarly and are both Commonwealth
New Zealand
with the same queen as
America's got your back, man.
Both share similar views on a variety of issues. Both are the smaller versions of a bigger neighbor that gets all the attention. Business, trade, and tourism is strong between them.
Canada's
in a way, they
awesome
kind of love each
country,
other for all
the
these reasons. When it comes to their best friend, however, as much as they love to poke fun, mock, ridicule, and spit on each other, they cannot deny that Australia is the closest. Australia even has a clause in its constitution that allows New Zealand to become a part of their country if they should ever want to for whatever reason. Although New Zealand is like, thanks, but no. Australia is not only the largest trading and business partner, but also has the closest...
I've also heard that too because of the housing expense in New Zealand. A lot of Kiwis are just hopping over to Australia.
And culture. The two have a unique Trans-Tasman Agreement that states that citizens of each country can migrate and have automatic residency.
That's
the two
neat.
go hand in hand. However, when Australia isn't looking, Canada kind of slips in and they kind of go off on secret dates. In conclusion, as humanity's last major expedition, you can imagine how the first settlers must have felt when they approached on this unknown world of glaciers, volcanoes, glowing caves, geysers, and giant 12-foot tall bird monsters. You don't need Lord of the Rings. New Zealand already is a real-life fantasy. Stay tuned.
That's cool.
Nicaragua is coming up next.
Wow, really, really, really cool, guys. Sounds like a wonderful place. Sounds like a lot of movies were filmed there. Just full of natural wonders. Those caves and mountains and beaches. How cool is that? New Zealand looks like a lot of fun. Lots of fun stuff to do, too. I know they have a big motorsports and car culture, which is right up my alley, of course. They have like really fast boat racing, or like fastest jet boat or something like that. A lot of cool random stuff about New Zealand, and interesting history too. Funny how like half the time they're left out of a map or something. Definitely one of those hidden gem countries. But yes, I am anxious to learn even more. What a cool country. Lots of cool stuff, I imagine, to learn. Furthermore, New Zealand looks awesome. Kiwis, you guys are awesome. Thank you for watching as always. Remember, if you're a Kiwi, let me know down in the comments. I'm glad to have you here. And throw a like on this video if you enjoyed it. If you learned something new, subscribe for more stuff like this. Remember, my name is Ian. You're watching IWrocker. And until next time, I'll catch you later.